Interesting story out of South Florida that's getting headlines here, where a 21-year-old North Lauderdale man is accused of stealing cryptocurrency using malicious video games. I don't even know how that would happen, but joining us live now to talk about this, let us know how it might happen and how you can watch out for it as well. We are pleased to be joined by Matt Rose, who is the CXO of TechRage IT in Longwood, joins us live now via Zoom. Matt, always good talking with you. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, Garrett.
So I guess this is just another example of kind of the evolving frontier of these threats. This is something malicious video games. I mean, this isn't something that I've heard of happening before.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been around for a while. I think it's just a matter of what they did here. I don't even know if I would say it's unique. It's probably out there more than we'd like to admit. But, from what it looks like, this person, basically built what looks like a video game that had a back end or a Trojan, and a Trojan is kind of like, you think about it, the actual Trojan horse of, a horse going in and somebody jumping out in the back once they get inside. And so they looked like a video game. It actually likely worked as a real video game, but in the back end, they were getting access to that computer and to potential cryptocurrency or other data.
And that's, concerning because, like you said, something that would appear like a normal video game, something that, believe the people, roughly 8,000 people who used this from May 2024 to February 2026. That's a lot of people in a long time that this was operating. And so I would imagine that's probably part of the trouble here, was that it was able to continue operating because it did appear as if it were a normal video game.
Yeah, and I think the reason is, 8,000 people for a couple of years. The problem is this was mostly going to get, home and, gamers or residential users who are not going to have the level of security that a business or an enterprise may have. And so, or they on purpose, they may not want to have them. I mean, if you think about somebody who's gaming or someone who's just trying to have fun, they're just kind of like, ooh, this looks interesting. And they're downloading it and not really, they may even be turning off certain security on their computer so that they can play games and do what they want. And so it would have and likely was caught. I bet you there's plenty of people out here who downloaded it and had some sort of security software, and then they thought nothing of it. They just thought, oh, oops, downloaded something bad and it blocked it and they moved on. But others were just playing it and enjoying it. And unfortunately, bad things were happening in the background.
So I'm curious, the platform here. So this was through one of those kind of streaming video game platforms that this game was on. Does that maybe make things a little bit more susceptible to something like this, as opposed to some other way of accessing a video game?
I think it's not so much where it was coming from as opposed to just paying attention to what you're downloading and who is creating it and if it's reputable. It kind of goes back to, if you have security software, not just antivirus, but there's various types of software now that would typically pick up on this Trojan, which is the big piece it had here. Like, it wasn't doing ransomware or anything like that. It was a Trojan. It was literally this product that may have been logging keys. So when people type their password, it was getting that, things like that. But it's not so much where you got it from, except you just didn't know if it was reputable. One thing, I don't know if we've spoken about it, but something like Roblox, for example, I know as a child's games, they have a lot of where they allow open source. So somebody can create their own game and put it out there. It's not so much going to do things like this per se, but it also means you don't know what's in the game. So when you're downloading random products, random games, they're not from, traditional measures. They're not on the Xbox or PlayStation or an Android or iOS app store. So you have no protection. And it could be a cool game, but you literally don't know. It's not reputable. You don't know if they're going through any sort of security check.
Is that the takeaway here? Just a reminder, whenever you are accessing something that is kind of like that, to make sure you trust it before you download it. Like me in my basement as a teenager downloading songs off of LimeWire, you got to make sure it's the the ones that look reputable before you hit download.
I mean, honestly, that's actually a really great comparison. I think, in a way, is to, if you go back to the days of LimeWire, it was great. You can get these MP3s and everything, but there was always the one that could be nefarious. Same idea. And so I think the thought process here is you should be downloading reputable games, doing some research on them. Even if you see it, someone posts about it on a social media, just do a little research, see if they actually are a real company, see if they have anything that tells you about their security. And that's the great thing about many of the streaming services, or about Xbox, PlayStation, iOS or Android. You typically have to go through a lot of a lot to get approved for there, and even then, if they have complaints, they'll kick you off. So just especially when you have teenagers or even younger kids, you have to be really careful as to what they're doing, because obviously, as we've talked about before, there's a lot of bad people out there.
And we should make it clear that we do not condone piracy of copyrighted material. LimeWire was definitely popular back in the day, but there are better ways to do that stuff now. So, Matt Rose, CXO of TechRage IT, we appreciate you joining us. Appreciate you breaking this down for us and letting us know what we need to watch out for, how to avoid all this stuff, because it is certainly scary out there sometimes on this, with everything being digital, and sometimes the vulnerabilities, sometimes the things that are open now. So we always appreciate your help and your advice, Matt.
Yep, always happy to help. Thanks for having me.